I didn't expect her to say that over morning coffee. It was a rainy Thursday in late October. Our backyard was a canvas of golden leaves, slick from the storm the night before. I remember that because the power had flickered around 3 a.m., and I woke up briefly to find Emily still asleep, curled into me like nothing was wrong. No tension, no signals, no warning. Now, hours later, she stood across the kitchen island wearing one of my old shirts, barefoot, hair pulled into a loose, sleepy bun. The steam from her tea curled around her face. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were cautious. "So I was thinking about Rachel," she began, setting down her mug. I looked up from my laptop. "Yeah. She's not okay." I nodded slowly. "I know. She's been through hell." Her divorce had been brutal. Her ex-husband was cold, manipulative, the kind of man who smiles while he guts you emotionally. "She doesn't have anyone right now, Jake," Emily continued, wrapping her fingers around her mug. "She's drifting. Alone. And I know her better than anyone." I wasn't sure where she was going with this. Rachel had always been part of our life. Emily's best friend since college, a regular presence at holidays, barbecues, spontaneous wine nights. But lately, Rachel had been quieter, distant, a little haunted. I closed my laptop, sensing the shift in Emily's tone. "Okay, what are you thinking?" Emily hesitated. She walked around the counter, sat beside me on the couch, and folded her legs beneath her like she always did when she was nervous. "This might sound weird at first," she said, "but just hear me out." My stomach clenched. "What if we brought her into our relationship?" she said softly. I blinked. "What? I don't mean like a threesome or some cliché," she rushed to clarify. "Not just sex. I mean something deeper. For now, emotional. A support system. A space to heal. For her. Maybe for us, too." "Emily," I said slowly, "you want to bring your best friend into our marriage. She needs us, Jake," she said, eyes searching mine. "And maybe we need her too." There was a silence, so sharp it hummed. I didn't know what to say. Emily reached for my hand. "I know this is out of left field. I've been thinking about it for weeks. It's not about jealousy or some weird fantasy. It's about connection, compassion, exploration, maybe, but not recklessness." Exploration. That word lingered like an ember on my skin. "I don't even know what that means," I muttered. "Are you talking about, like a poly relationship?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe something temporary. Maybe just a way to help her reconnect with people who love her. With intimacy. With touch. She doesn't trust men anymore. But she trusts me. She trusts us." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so insane that I didn't know what else to do. "Jake," Emily said, tightening her grip. "This isn't about replacing what we have. You and I are solid. I love you. I'm not looking to change us. I just think we can expand what love means." My head was spinning. "And you think that will help Rachel?" "Yes. And us." Her eyes didn't flinch. "Maybe. We've both been a little disconnected lately." She wasn't wrong. Between her long hours at the nonprofit, my new project at the firm, the daily grind of life, we'd become parallel lines. Still running side by side, but rarely intersecting. I loved her fiercely. But lately, we've been sharing more silence than laughter, more comfort than passion. "This is crazy," I said. "Maybe," she whispered. "But isn't life too short not to be a little crazy?" There was something in her voice that wasn't reckless. It was cracked. Like she'd been holding this for weeks, maybe longer. And maybe this wasn't just about Rachel. It was about us. I sat back, running my hands over my face. My heart was pounding. "Have you talked to her about this?" "No," Emily said quickly. "Not directly. But there've been conversations. Vulnerable ones. The way she talks to me sometimes. I think she needs something safe. Someone safe." "You're saying she wants this too?" "I'm saying she might. If we offer. Gently." I stood up, pacing the kitchen. Every step felt like crossing a line I didn't fully understand. "What would this even look like, Em?" "She could stay over sometimes. Be part of our dinners, our space. No pressure. Just inclusion. We create the rules. Boundaries. Communication. We don't rush anything." "And what happens if you start feeling jealous? Or if we feel anything," she said firmly, "we talk about it. We don't hide it. That's the deal." "And if sex happens?" Her lips parted slightly. She didn't answer right away. "That's not the goal, Jake," she said. "But if it does, we face it together. No secrets." The air felt charged. I could feel my skin prickling. This was insane. But the idea of Rachel, beautiful, broken, familiar Rachel, here, wrapped in a blanket on our couch, laughing at my jokes, touching Emily's hand during stories, maybe brushing past me in the hallway in nothing but a towel. Say something, Emily said gently. I looked at her. Really looked. My wife. The woman I'd married 8 years ago. Smart. Brave. And right now, inviting me into a world I didn't understand, but one that pulsed with something raw. Something real. Okay, I said finally. Okay, but we do this slow. Carefully. She smiled. Relieved, nervous, grateful. Slow is good, she whispered. Thank you. I didn't know what I'd just agreed to, but something told me this was the beginning of a storm we weren't ready for. And that maybe, just maybe, I didn't want to stop it. 3 nights later, Rachel came over. Emily insisted we make it special but casual, which meant candlelight, music low enough to barely notice, and the kind of food that made it look like we weren't trying too hard. Pasta tossed in olive oil and herbs. Wine poured generously. Conversation easy. But nothing about it felt casual to me. I stood in the dining room lighting the last of the tea light candles while Emily finished plating the food. I could hear her humming under her breath. She always hummed when she was nervous. She was trying not to show it, but I'd been with her long enough to know the signs. The extra coat of lipstick, the way she checked her reflection every time she passed the hallway mirror, the way her voice went slightly higher when Rachel rang the doorbell. I got it, she said quickly before I could move. She practically skipped to the door. When she opened it, I didn't expect to feel anything. Rachel had always been attractive, sure. Tall, auburn hair that curled perfectly without effort, green eyes that always looked like they were hiding something. But she had never been this. She stood in the doorway in a black sweater dress that hugged her like it was designed with her in mind. Not flashy, just clean. Her makeup subtle. A single silver necklace catching the light. And the boots, tall leather, subtle heel. Feminine. Confident. Emily hugged her tightly, both women clinging for a second longer than casual friends normally would. I watched from the hallway. When Rachel looked up and saw me, her smile shifted, softened. Jake, she said, walking toward me. Her voice was warm, low, familiar. God, it's good to see you. You too. I managed, offering a polite smile. Been too long. She stepped in for a hug. In that moment, the second her arms went around me, everything inside me pulled taut. Her body wasn't pressed against mine, not fully, but I could feel her. The curve of her hip, the brush of her cheek, the perfume, something smoky, something that lingered even after she pulled away. I brought wine, she said, holding out the bottle like it could neutralize whatever just passed between us. Emily took it with a grin. You didn't have to. I wanted to, Rachel said. Her eyes flicked toward me again, just for a second too long. Felt like a celebration. We sat around the table like any normal evening, laughing about old stories from college. The time Emily and Rachel got lost in Florence. The botched dinner party we'd hosted years ago when the fire alarm went off mid-dessert. But there was an undercurrent, a tension that ran beneath the surface, like heat rising under cool words. Rachel sipped her wine slowly, her eyes occasionally drifting over me when Emily wasn't looking. Her foot brushed mine once under the table. I pulled back, thinking it was accidental. But the second time, it lingered for half a second too long. Emily was deep into a story about her latest fundraising campaign when Rachel leaned closer to me and whispered, "You still cook like a dream." I turned my head toward her. Our faces were closer than they should have been. Thanks, I said, my voice lower than I intended. There was a silence between us, suspended in the noise of clinking forks and soft music. A pause that said more than words could. And then Emily stood, grabbing empty plates. I'll start the dishes, she announced. I'll help, Rachel said quickly. No. Emily waved her off. You're the guest. Sit. Talk to Jake. She disappeared into the kitchen, humming again. Rachel turned to me. Her voice dropped again, barely above the music. I know it sounds crazy, but being here? It feels more like home than anywhere else I've been in months. I didn't know what to say. She tilted her head. Emily told you, didn't she? Yeah, I said. She told me. Rachel leaned back, sipping her wine. And I don't know what to make of it. A pause. Her lips curved. I don't want to break anything, she said. But sometimes, being close to something beautiful doesn't mean you want to steal it. Sometimes you just want to be near it. My chest felt too tight. You're not just talking about Emily, I said. She smiled faintly. Would it scare you if I wasn't? I didn't answer. I couldn't. In the kitchen, the faucet ran, dishes clinked, the sound grounding us for a moment. Rachel stood up suddenly and walked toward the window, looking out at the rainy street, her arms crossed. You know, she said without looking back, after the divorce. I started feeling like I was nothing more than a collection of wounds. Like the best parts of me had been used up. And Emily, she made me feel like I still mattered. Like I still had weight, depth, desire. She turned then, her eyes fixed on mine. I haven't felt that in years. I stood up, walking toward the kitchen just as Emily came out, wiping her hands on a towel, smiling. Dessert? She asked. Rachel brought tiramisu. Rachel's gaze didn't leave mine. I thought it might be sweet enough to share. I nodded, heart pounding. And in that moment, with two women standing on either side of me, one my wife, the other her best friend, I realized I was standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. Not a triangle, a fault line, and the first tremor had just begun. It was supposed to be one night, just one night of comfort. That's what Emily said when Rachel stayed over for the first time. She had a rough day, she whispered to me in the hallway, her voice low, like Rachel might overhear us from the guest room. She's been spiraling since dinner with her ex last week. He brought his new girlfriend, 24, blonde, and already wearing his last name. I exhaled slowly. That's brutal. She didn't want to be alone tonight. I nodded. Yeah, of course. Whatever she needs. Emily reached for my hand, squeezing it. I love that about you. That night started like most others. A movie in the living room, wine, blankets, soft laughter over dumb Netflix choices. Rachel curled into the far corner of the couch. Emily beside her. I took the other end. And somewhere between the second and third glass of wine, I felt it again, that silent current passing between us. Not words, not even glances. Just energy. It wasn't even sexual at first. Just proximity. A warmth that made the room feel smaller. Emily shifted, resting her head on Rachel's shoulder. Rachel tilted her head gently, almost protectively, and let her fingers drift into Emily's hair. They whispered something I didn't catch. A giggle followed. Then silence. Then Rachel's eyes met mine over the top of Emily's head. There was something unspoken there. Not a challenge. Not invitation. Something between. Emily sat up slowly. Let's move to bed. My heart skipped. You mean all of us? She looked at Rachel, then at me. There's space. I froze. Not from fear. From not wanting to misread it. Rachel set her wine down. If it's okay, she said, voice soft. Just to sleep. It's late. And I don't want to go back to that room. Not tonight. Emily didn't answer with words. She took Rachel's hand, stood, and turned to me. Come on, she said. No pressure. Just closeness. I followed them. It felt surreal. Three of us walking down the hallway like we were actors in someone else's fantasy. But it wasn't a fantasy. It was my house. My wife. Her best friend. Our bed. We all slid under the covers. Emily in the middle. Rachel on her right. Me on her left. The room was quiet. Only the sound of breath and the occasional shift of fabric. I lay there for what felt like hours. Eyes open. Mind racing. And then, I felt it. Emily's hand sliding into mine beneath the covers. Familiar. Warm. Grounding. A second later, something I didn't expect. Rachel's hand, brushing mine from the other side. Not accidental. It was deliberate. I didn't move. Emily laced her fingers into mine. Her thumb brushed softly along my knuckle. Then I felt Rachel's fingers, slow, gentle, find mine on the other side. No words. Just this quiet surrender. I stared at the ceiling, my pulse thudding. I was the one trembling. Eventually, Emily shifted closer, resting her head on my chest, her breath slow, even. Rachel did the same, her cheek resting lightly against my shoulder. Her hand stayed wrapped around mine. And in that moment, I didn't know where one body ended and the other began. Sleep came slow, heavy, strange. But it came. In the morning, Rachel was already up, making coffee in one of Emily's t-shirts. I found her barefoot in the kitchen, humming quietly to herself, the sun catching the auburn strands in her hair. She didn't turn around when I entered. Morning, she said. Morning. She poured 2 mugs. Cream. Black. She handed me a cup without meeting my eyes. but the corners of her lips lifted. I slept better than I have in months. I nodded. Same. Silence stretched. Not awkward. Not yet. Then Rachel finally turned, her expression unreadable. Did that cross a line? I exhaled, looking down at my coffee. I don't even know where the lines are anymore. She chuckled. Yeah, me neither. Emily walked in just then, rubbing her eyes. Smells good in here. Rachel smiled. You beat me to the coffee, Emily added, reaching for a mug and kissing her cheek gently. And just like that, the moment reset. Like this was normal. Like 3 people sharing a bed was a casual Tuesday event. We sat around the breakfast bar, sipping coffee, talking about the weather, weekend plans, errands. No one mentioned the bed. No one mentioned the hands. Later that day, Emily brought it up. We need to talk about rules. I paused, setting my phone down. Okay. Last night felt natural, she said carefully. But if we're going to keep doing this, we need to be clear. Doing what exactly? She didn't flinch. Letting Rachel be part of our space. You mean in our bed? Emily nodded slowly. It doesn't have to be sexual. It wasn't really. But I think we both felt something. All 3 of us. I swallowed. So what are the rules? No one-on-one contact, she said. No secrets. No intimacy outside of shared space. And no emotional exclusivity. Meaning none of us gets to claim more than the others. No mine. It has to stay balanced. I nodded slowly. Okay. It's just comfort, she added, almost to herself. Support. Not an affair. Not yet, I thought. Rachel stayed again that weekend. And again the next. It didn't feel like a guest anymore. Her toothbrush was in the bathroom. Her scent in the hallway. Her voice part of the morning noise. I told myself it was temporary. That this was all about healing. For her. But somewhere between whispered jokes in the kitchen, shared glances over coffee, and the way her hand always found mine beneath the covers, I knew the rules were already bending. Because boundaries, I was learning, are just words. And some words are meant to be broken. It was a Tuesday morning when I noticed it. The quiet. Not the kind that felt peaceful, but the kind that hangs between people like fog. Thick, muffled, and strange. Emily had already left for work. She'd kissed my cheek, said she'd be late because of a board meeting, and floated out the door wearing a blazer I hadn't seen before. Rachel stayed behind. It had become routine. She was staying 3, sometimes 4 nights a week now. We hadn't talked about it. No one had said, you live here now, but the signs were there. Her shampoo in our shower, her favorite mug always by the sink, her laundry tossed casually into the same basket as ours. That morning, I walked into the kitchen in just sweatpants, expecting to find it empty. But there she was, Rachel, standing barefoot on the cool tile, one of Emily's oversized sweaters falling off her shoulder as she reached up into the cabinet for coffee filters. She didn't hear me come in at first. When she turned and saw me, she smiled, but not in a shy, friend of my wife way. This smile was quieter, warmer, slower. Morning, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Morning. My voice cracked a little, throat dry. I moved past her toward the coffee pot. As I reached for it, her fingers grazed mine. Just a soft, incidental touch. But my skin reacted like it had been struck by lightning. We stood there, too close, for a beat too long. I didn't know you were home today, she said. Client canceled, I muttered. Gave me the morning off. Lucky me. I looked at her. She looked back. There was a pause. It stretched thin like glass. Then she stepped back, pulling away from the counter. I can make breakfast, she offered. Something simple. You don't have to. I want to, she said. I like taking care of you. You. Not you two. Not both of you. Just you. I sat at the island while she made scrambled eggs and toast. She moved with ease, like she'd done it 100 times in our kitchen. And maybe she had. In the space of weeks, her presence had melted into the walls. We talked about music, movies, her ex, mine, if you count the first-year disaster before Emily. It felt familiar, intimate, too intimate. She handed me a plate and sat beside me. Not across the island, beside me. Our knees brushed. Jake, she said quietly, eyes on her eggs. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think this is the bad idea? This? She nodded, not looking at me. What we're doing. This sleeping arrangement. This closeness. I took a breath. I don't know. She laughed just once. Bitter. God. That's honest. I'm trying to be. She finally looked at me. It's just hard to tell what's real anymore. What's comfort and what's want? I asked. Her gaze flicked to my lips, then back to my eyes. Yeah. I felt my heart in my throat. We sat in silence for a while, eating, not speaking, not needing to. When the plates were empty, she stood to rinse them in the sink. I followed, grabbing the towel to help dry. We worked quietly, side by side. Then she stopped, water still running, her fingers wet. I've never felt safe like this, she said softly, eyes fixed on the dishes. Not even with my ex. Not even close. My voice was low. You're safe here. She turned toward me. We were inches apart again. Her eyes searched mine, like she was looking for a reason to pull away. She didn't. I feel like I'm walking a tightrope, she whispered. And if I move 1 inch too far, everything falls apart. I nodded. You're not the only one. Her fingers were still wet when she touched my chest. Just a brush, barely anything. But my skin ached beneath it. And then, nothing more. She turned away, back to the dishes. Like nothing had happened. But something had. That night, Emily didn't come home until nearly 10. Rachel and I kept our distance. No more close counters. No more lingering touches. But I saw it in her eyes. She knew something had shifted. Emily collapsed onto the couch, kicked off her shoes, and sighed. God, I'm exhausted. I handed her a glass of wine. Rachel curled up beside her, arm brushing hers, head resting on her shoulder. It was all normal. But it wasn't. I couldn't unfeel her touch in the kitchen. Couldn't unhear those words. I like taking care of you. Later, as we all climbed into bed again, Rachel on the far side this time, Emily in the middle, there was distance. Subtle. Calculated. Like we were pretending not to remember the morning. But my body did. My thoughts did. Rachel's fingers didn't find mine that night. And that somehow felt worse than if they had. It started with a toothbrush. Mint green, curved handle. Subtle. Innocent. It appeared in our bathroom cup one Thursday morning, resting beside Emily's and mine like it had always belonged there. No announcement. No permission. Just there. I stared at it while brushing my teeth, the foam thick in my mouth, heartbeat oddly elevated. It wasn't the object itself. It was the symbolism. It meant she wasn't just visiting anymore. She was here. Living here? Not officially. But Emily hadn't said anything about it. And neither had Rachel. No suitcase at the door. No formal talk about moving in. But her shoes were in the foyer. Her charger plugged in beside the bed. Her jacket hanging on the same hook as Emily's. Some mornings I'd come down to find her already drinking coffee on the porch in one of my old sweatshirts. Sometimes she was on the phone with her sister, laughing softly, legs tucked beneath her like this was her space. And somehow, no one was acknowledging it. Not even me. We'd built rules, hadn't we? No emotional exclusivity. No one-on-one intimacy. No solo moments. And yet, solo moments were happening. All the time. Quiet ones. Long ones. Like the evening Emily had to work late again. I'd come home to the scent of rosemary chicken in the oven. Rachel was barefoot in leggings and a tank top, hair tied up loosely, humming with a glass of white wine in her hand. Hope you're hungry, she said as I walked in. I thought you had yoga. Canceled, she said. Didn't feel like leaving the house. The house. Not your house. She moved around the kitchen like it belonged to her. And the scariest part was, it kind of did now. We ate together. Just the two of us. We laughed. We shared a bottle of wine. She told me about a dream she had where we were all in Italy, living in a converted farmhouse with grapevines growing out back and a dog named Argento that only listened to Rachel. I don't know how the conversation turned serious. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was inevitable. She'd been talking about how quiet things were between her and her mom lately. How since the divorce, even family didn't know how to treat her. It's like I became radioactive, she said softly. Even my friends, they check in, but it's like they're relieved not to be in my shoes. No one wants to be near that kind of grief. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. She looked up at me. Her eyes were glassy, but not from crying. Just open. This place, being here, it doesn't feel like hiding, she whispered. It feels like breathing again. The moment sat there between us like a stone dropped in still water. Emily came home late that night, after Rachel had gone to bed. She was exhausted, barely spoke. She kissed me, mumbled about an upcoming grant deadline, and collapsed onto her side of the bed. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering when things had stopped feeling like ours. That weekend, Rachel's brother came to town. He stopped by to pick her up for lunch, and I watched from the upstairs window as she greeted him outside. He gave her a long hug, and then looked up at the house, my house, confused. I knew that look. I'd worn it for weeks. When she came back later that day, I asked, "What did he say about you staying here?" She paused, biting her lip. Said it was weird. I nodded. It is. She walked over, slowly, arms crossed. Do you think I should go? I hesitated. I don't know. She sat on the arm of the couch. I don't want to make this harder. You're not, I said. But I wasn't sure that was true. Monday morning, I opened the fridge to grab cream and saw it. A sticky note. My name, written in Rachel's handwriting, taped to the milk carton. Buy more if this is low. I use this to now winky face. It shouldn't have affected me the way it did. But it did. It wasn't about the milk. It was about claiming space. She had a toothbrush, a robe hanging on the hook, notes on the fridge, her favorite playlist saved in our Spotify account. She was a guest in name only now. Emily noticed it too. That night, she sat down beside me after dinner while Rachel was in the shower. She's staying here more than she's not. I nodded. I've noticed. Does it bother you? I didn't answer. Emily looked down at her hands. I didn't think it would get this far. I thought a few nights. Some support. And that's it. But it's not that anymore, I said. No, she whispered. Then she looked at me. Do you want her here? I swallowed. I don't know. Sometimes it feels easy. Natural. Other times it feels like we've let something into the house that's rewriting everything. She nodded slowly. Same. We sat there in silence. Then Emily whispered something I didn't expect. Do you look at her the way you used to look at me? I turned to her. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. I don't know what I'm doing, she said. I thought bringing her here would help us reconnect. But sometimes it feels like I opened a door and she walked in and took something I didn't even know I was offering. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. I don't love her, I said. Emily nodded. But you see her. And that scares me more than anything. Upstairs, the shower stopped. Emily looked toward the ceiling. She's more than a guest now, she said. And we both knew. There was no going back. It was raining the night Emily left for her conference. She'd packed lightly, just to carry on in her laptop bag, and she was out the door by 6 p.m. She kissed me softly at the curb, brushing rain off my collar. I'll be back Sunday night, she said. I nodded. Text when you land. She looked up at me, almost searching for something in my eyes. Be good. I will, I said. She hesitated, like she wanted to say more. But she didn't. She just got in the car and left. Rachel hadn't been home when Emily left. She'd gone to yoga earlier and was running errands after. I hadn't asked if she planned on staying over while Emily was gone. I hadn't asked anything at all, really. But when she walked through the door later that evening, soaked from the rain, cheeks flushed and hoodie clinging to her frame, I knew she wasn't going anywhere. Your hair's dripping, I said, handing her a towel. She peeled off the wet hoodie, revealing just a sports bra underneath. I looked away quickly, but not quickly enough. She caught it, and she didn't seem in any rush to cover up. Got caught in it, she said, laughing, pulling the towel over her head. It felt kind of good, honestly. I nodded. Want a glass of wine? God, yes. We sat in the living room, 2 glasses deep, wrapped in blankets as thunder rolled lazily outside. Some old jazz record was playing low in the background. The house felt too quiet without Emily, but not in the way it should have. There was a warmth here tonight, a closeness that wasn't accidental anymore. Rachel shifted on the couch, tucking her feet beneath her. So it's just us, she said, her voice soft. Just us. She sipped from her glass, then looked at me. Are we okay? I swallowed. What do you mean? This, she said, gesturing between us. I keep feeling like we're circling something, but no one wants to name it. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She leaned in slightly. Do you want me to go back to my place tonight? I should have said yes. I should have offered to call her a car, or driven her myself, or told her that we needed to stick to the rules. The boundaries. The scaffolding we'd built around this strange new thing we were pretending wasn't already collapsing. Instead, I said no, and that was all she needed. Later, we found ourselves sitting on the floor in the hallway outside the bedroom, sharing the last of the wine from the bottle. Emily loves you, Rachel said. I looked up. Her knees were drawn to her chest, hair damp, eyes glassy from the alcohol, or something else. I know, I said. She looked down. I love her too. I know. She turned her head toward me, her voice barely above a whisper. but I think I might love this, too. I didn't ask what this meant, because I already knew. We sat in silence for a long time. The storm outside had softened to a slow drizzle. The house creaked around us. And then she leaned in. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't messy or drunken. It was quiet. Intentional. Her lips brushed mine, soft and unsure. When she pulled back, her eyes were searching mine, waiting for the panic. The guilt. The rejection. None of it came. She kissed me again. And this time, I kissed her back. The hallway disappeared. The storm disappeared. The guilt didn't. Not yet. Her hands slid into my hair. Mine found her waist, and everything that had been simmering for weeks boiled over in a breath. She pulled me toward the bedroom. I followed. We didn't speak afterward. She curled into me like she had 100 times before, but this was different. Her body was bare. Her breath slower. Her fingers traced my ribs lazily beneath the sheets. I shouldn't have done that, she said softly, finally breaking the silence. I stared at the ceiling. We shouldn't have. She didn't move. Do you think she'll know? My throat tightened. Eventually. I didn't plan this, Rachel whispered. It just happened. That phrase. It just happened. The lie people tell themselves when they want to pretend it wasn't a choice. But it was. Every look. Every near touch. Every line we tiptoed across. We made those choices. We crossed the line, I said. Rachel nodded against my chest. So what now? I didn't have an answer. She fell asleep before I did. Her breathing slowed. Her hand remained on my chest like a claim she wasn't ready to release. I lay awake for hours, guilt climbing into my throat like a vine. I told Emily I would be good, and I hadn't been. Sunday came faster than I expected. Emily texted that she was home early. Her flight had landed ahead of schedule. She was grabbing a car. I was in the kitchen when she walked through the door. Rachel was upstairs, showering. Emily smiled, setting her bag down. Miss me? I nodded, walking over to kiss her. She melted into me like she always did, but there was a beat, just a half second, where I flinched. And she noticed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You okay? Yeah, I said quickly. Just tired. She nodded. I get that. Rachel came down the stairs a few minutes later, freshly dressed, hair still damp. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second before she turned to Emily with a bright smile. You're back. They hugged like nothing was different. And maybe, for them, it wasn't. Yet. But I felt it in the space between us, in the way Rachel wouldn't quite meet my eyes, and in the way Emily looked at me a little too long when she poured her wine that night. She hadn't said anything yet, but she would, because something had shifted. And eventually, someone always knows. Emily didn't say anything that first night back. Not directly, but the signs were there. She kissed me like she always did, but her eyes lingered a second too long. Her hug wasn't quite as tight. At dinner, she was quieter than usual. She watched Rachel across the table like she was reading a language only she understood. Rachel, for her part, played it well. Too well. She laughed when she should, smiled at the right moments, even complimented Emily's new necklace, the one I hadn't noticed, but her hands were stiff, her eyes flicking between us like she was bracing for impact. The wine bottle was nearly empty when Emily finally spoke. So, she said casually, pushing her plate away, how was the weekend? I froze. My fork hovered in midair. Rachel beat me to it. Quiet, she said. Did a little cooking. Watched a movie. Nothing crazy. Emily's eyes didn't leave mine. Jake? Pretty much that, I said, voice low. Worked a little. Took it easy. She nodded, drawing her tongue slowly over her teeth. Good. But something about the word felt sharp. Rachel excused herself a few minutes later, mumbling something about an early yoga class. I heard the guest room door click shut, not our bedroom. That, somehow, felt worse than if she'd stayed in my bed again. Emily began stacking the plates. I stood to help, but she waved me off. I've got it. I hesitated. You sure? She gave me a tight smile. I'm sure. The kitchen felt colder when she turned away. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds longer, watching her rinse the dishes, shoulders tense, her mouth tight. She didn't hum. Not once. That night in bed, we lay back to back. Her breathing was shallow. I knew she wasn't asleep. Neither was I. I wanted to say something. To confess. To explain. But the words wouldn't come. And even if they had, I wasn't sure I had the right to speak them. The next day was worse. She barely touched me. Barely looked at me. And the silence between her and Rachel wasn't silence at all. It was void. Empty where it used to be full. Unspoken questions charged the air like static. I came home from a meeting around 4 p.m. and found Emily in the garden, gloves on, tearing weeds from the soil like they'd done something to her personally. Rachel was nowhere in sight. I stepped onto the porch. Everything okay? Emily didn't look up. You know I asked her to stay in the guest room, right? The air around me thickened instantly. I cleared my throat. She didn't say. She wouldn't. Emily pulled another weed, tossed it into the growing pile. I told her before I left for the conference. I said it gently, respectfully, but clearly. My hands clenched around the porch railing. You didn't tell me. She stood slowly, wiping dirt off her gloves. Her eyes met mine, and they weren't angry. They were tired. I was trying to give you space. Both of you. I stepped down into the yard. Emily, did you sleep with her? It was a clean break. No build-up. No accusation. Just truth laid bare. I froze. She tilted her head, just slightly. Jake. I swallowed hard. It wasn't planned. I didn't ask if it was planned. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. That hurt more than if she had. She kissed me. I said. And I didn't stop her. Emily blinked slowly. Did you want to? I hesitated. And that, I think, was the answer. She looked away, down at the pile of weeds. I told you the rules. I know. You broke them. I took a step closer. Emily, I didn't mean for this to happen. Of course you didn't, she said, too quickly. None of us did. She pulled the gloves off, dropping them to the grass. I thought we could handle this, she whispered. That if we were honest, if we communicated, if we did everything right, we could explore this and come out stronger. I thought I could trust you. I thought I could trust her. I had no words. She looked up again. How long? One night, I said. That's all. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, I said quietly. But it's the truth. She nodded slowly. Well, thank you for that. And then she turned and walked inside. Later, Rachel came home. I was in the living room when she walked in, her eyes immediately darting toward the kitchen, empty. No, Emily. She dropped her bag quietly. She knows, doesn't she? I didn't answer. Rachel sat down across from me. I told myself it wouldn't happen, that if I just kept things light, didn't cross any lines. We already crossed them, I said. A long time ago. She looked down, hands folded in her lap. She's going to ask me to leave. Probably. And you? I looked at her. Her face was pale, eyes tired. But behind the remorse was something else, something even more painful. Hope. I don't know, I said. I don't know what I'm doing. She nodded slowly. She was always the brave one, Rachel whispered. The strong one. The one who could open her heart and somehow still hold it together. I don't know how she did it. I closed my eyes. I heard her, I said. Rachel didn't argue. We both knew it was true. That night, Emily didn't come to bed. I found her in the guest room, curled under a blanket with her back to the door. A book lay open beside her, but she wasn't reading it. Her eyes were fixed on nothing. I stood in the doorway for a long time. Finally, I said, can we talk? She didn't move. Not yet. Emily. Jake, please. The words weren't angry. Just final. I need space, she said softly. And I need time. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I backed out of the room and closed the door gently. And then I stood in the hallway. The same hallway where Rachel had first kissed me, and felt the weight of everything we'd built begin to crack. She knew. And now we all had to live in the aftermath. The next morning felt like standing in a room after the fire was out. Silent, charred, everything still smoldering. Emily hadn't come back to our bedroom. Rachel didn't leave the house. And I was trapped somewhere in the middle, existing between two doors, two women, and one enormous mistake. The coffee pot sputtered to life at 7:15 a.m., like it always did. The sound used to feel comforting. Routine. Now it just echoed. Rachel was the first to speak. She came into the kitchen barefoot, wearing a faded t-shirt and leggings, hair tied up loosely. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her lips pale. I don't know how to fix this, she said. I didn't turn around. I don't think we can. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She won't talk to me. She needs time. Rachel exhaled. I never wanted to be the thing that came between you two. I finally looked at her. You weren't the thing. It was all of it. The cracks were already there. She looked away, but I widened them. Before I could respond, Emily appeared in the hallway. She wasn't dressed for work. Sweatpants, hoodie, hair down. She looked between us, Silent, unreadable. Sit down, she said. We both obeyed. She didn't. She stood in front of the island, gripping the edge like it was holding her upright. I'm going to say this once, Emily said. And I need you both to listen. No interruptions. We nodded. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. But it was steel. I brought Rachel into this home because I loved her. Because I trusted her. And because I believed, with every part of me, that something beautiful could exist between the three of us. Not just sex. Not just drama. Something meaningful. Her eyes went to Rachel. You were hurting. I wanted to help. I wanted to give you safety. Not seduction. Rachel looked down. Then Emily turned to me. And you, Jake, I trusted you to protect that space. Not because I thought you were perfect, but because I believed we were strong enough to hold each other accountable. She paused. But we weren't. No one spoke. Emily inhaled. I'm angry, but I'm not surprised. That's the part that hurts the most. Somewhere deep down, I saw this coming. I just didn't want to believe it. Her voice cracked there, just slightly. She recovered quickly. Rachel, she said, you need to go. Rachel's head snapped up. Emily, please don't, Emily said. Don't try to justify it. Don't tell me it was an accident. Don't beg to stay. Just respect what's left. Rachel's lips parted, but she said nothing. Her shoulders collapsed inward. Emily turned to me. And you? She paused, like she had to search for the right words. You need to decide what you want. I swallowed. I want you. She gave a sad smile. But do you want only me? The question landed like a blade. I don't know, I admitted. Her smile faded. Rachel stood quietly, then turned and walked upstairs without a word. I didn't follow her. Emily didn't move. What happens now? I asked. She looked at me. Now? Now I breathe. I feel everything. And I try to figure out whether I still have anything left to give you. I stood slowly. I never stopped loving you. She nodded. But you loved her too. I didn't mean to. That doesn't matter. She turned away then, walking out of the kitchen and down the hallway. A door closed softly behind her. A minute later, I heard the creak of the stairs. Rachel, coming back down, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Her eyes were wet. She stopped in front of me. She's right, she said. About all of it. I didn't speak. Rachel reached out, brushing her hand down my arm one last time. You don't love me the way you look at her, she whispered. And I was the one who brought this into your life. Rachel. She shook her head. Don't. It's okay. I'll be all right. I followed her to the door. She opened it, hesitated, then turned back. Her face was softer now, calmer. You didn't choose this, Jake, she said. But maybe you should. And then she stepped out into the early light, the door closing gently behind her. I stood there, hands still on the knob, wondering when everything had become so unrecognizable. Upstairs, Emily was silent. Outside, the world continued like it didn't just collapse. And I stood in the doorway, still torn between two women, but now, completely alone. I didn't expect to see her again. After Rachel left, the house felt quiet in a way I couldn't describe. Not empty. Emily was still here, but changed. Like a chord had gone missing in the music. I wasn't even sure if I missed her or just missed the idea of her. Emily spoke less over the next few days. She still made coffee in the morning, still left for work around the same time, but she didn't reach for my hand when we passed each other. She didn't linger in the kitchen. We shared a bed, but not sleep. I gave her space. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't know what else to give. Then, on a Friday night, Rachel texted. I left something at the house. Mind if I stop by? My heart skipped once, then dropped. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I'll leave the door unlocked. She arrived an hour later. I opened the door before she could knock. She stepped in slowly, cautiously, like she was entering sacred ground. She wore jeans and a gray sweater, her hair pulled into a loose braid. No makeup, no smile. I gestured toward the hallway. It's in the closet. The canvas tote. She nodded and walked past me. Her scent followed. It was still familiar. She found the bag quickly but didn't leave. Instead, she stood at the foot of the stairs, fingers running along the worn canvas. I didn't think it would hurt this much, she said softly. What? Coming back. I exhaled, leaning against the wall. I didn't think you would. She turned to face me. I had to. Her eyes locked on mine, and for a moment, neither of us moved. The silence was full, not empty, thick with everything we hadn't said. Rachel took a step closer. Do you hate me? I shook my head. I couldn't. But you regret it. Yes, I said. And no. That made her smile, just barely. Same. Another step closer. I could feel the warmth of her now. I never wanted to leave this way, she whispered. I know. I loved you, Jake. Maybe not like Emily did. Maybe not in a forever way. But I did. My chest tightened. I believe you. She reached up then, slowly, fingers brushing my cheek. This doesn't feel like the end. It has to be. Her hand dropped. Then why do I still feel you everywhere in that house? I didn't answer. I didn't know how. She looked toward the living room, her eyes glassy. Do you remember that night in the kitchen? When I dropped the spoon and you bent down to get it at the same time. I smiled despite myself. Yeah, you bumped my forehead. And I laughed so hard I snorted. You were so embarrassed. Her gaze softened. I wasn't. Not really. Because you looked at me like I was magic. Silence again. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. Not urgently. Not possessively. Just completely. I didn't pull away. I held her. My face tucked into her neck, her breath warm against my ear. I felt her heart thudding through the thin sweater. She wasn't crying. Neither was I. But the grief was still there, alive between us. She pulled back first. But before she could move away completely, I kissed her. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't a temptation. It was a goodbye. Our lips met, soft and slow, no hunger this time, no heat. Just two people mourning the same loss in the only language they still shared. When we pulled apart, she didn't speak. She just nodded, picked up the tote, and walked to the door. Her hand paused on the knob. You didn't choose this, Jake, she said again. But maybe you should. And then she left. This time for good. Emily came downstairs 10 minutes later. Her eyes flicked to the empty entryway. She came back. I nodded, just to grab her things. You kissed her. It wasn't a question. I didn't lie. Yes. Emily stepped into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and stared out the window. I told myself I could forgive one night, she said. One mistake. Maybe even one broken promise. She turned slowly. But this isn't one thing anymore, is it? I said nothing. Do you still want her? I don't know, I said. I don't know what I want. She nodded, setting the glass down. Then you shouldn't be here until you do. That cut deeper than I expected. Emily, you need to figure it out, she said. Without her. Without me. Without this house. I can't be your maybe. I wanted to argue. I wanted to fight. But she was right. I left that night. Took nothing but a duffel bag and my keys. I didn't call Rachel. I didn't sleep. I just drove for hours, the radio off, the road ahead dark and unforgiving. She said it didn't feel like the end. But maybe, sometimes, endings don't feel like endings until long after the door has closed. A week passed before I saw her again. 7 days in a short-term rental on the edge of town. A studio with a leaky faucet and a crooked floorboard by the bed. It smelled like paint and loneliness. I worked during the day, ate cheap takeout at night, stared at the ceiling in the dark, wondering how long someone could float in limbo before they stopped being a person and just became a ghost in their own life. I didn't hear from Emily. I didn't text Rachel. I just existed. By Friday, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove home, not to move back in, not to beg, just to see, to remember what it had felt like to belong somewhere. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was there. So was Rachel's. My chest tightened. I knocked. Habit. Emily opened the door slowly. Her eyes were tired, but steady. She looked at me like she'd already made peace with whatever version of me was about to appear. Can I come in? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. For a minute. The house felt unfamiliar already. Rachel was in the living room, standing awkwardly near the fireplace. Her hands were folded in front of her. She looked like she was waiting for a verdict. What's going on? I asked. Emily walked to the center of the room and turned toward both of us. I called her, she said. Rachel looked at me, but I couldn't read her expression. You said you wanted space, I said. I did, Emily replied. And I used it. To think. To feel. To decide what I want. And she took a breath. I want honesty, she said. Not peacekeeping. Not half-truths. Not rules we can bend when they get inconvenient. I want the kind of love that stands up and chooses. I swallowed. I get that. She stepped closer. I've spent months trying to keep us all balanced. Protect your feelings. Comfort hers. Avoid hurting anyone. And I lost myself in the process. Her voice didn't shake. Not once. I thought bringing her in would fill something in us, she continued. That maybe what we needed wasn't just each other anymore. But I was wrong. She turned to Rachel. I love you, she said. You were my best friend before any of this. And part of me still wants you here. But not like this. Rachel's eyes filled, but she didn't speak. Emily looked at me. And I love you, Jake. I always have. But you've been trying to love us both like you're waiting for someone else to make the decision for you. That's not fair. Yes, it is, she said, cutting me off. You stood at a fork in the road and just sat down. And we've been stuck here ever since. The room was still. Rachel shifted her weight, quietly wiping her eyes. So I'm making the decision now, Emily said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her wedding ring. She held it between her fingers, then set it on the coffee table with a soft clink. I'm not asking you to leave, she said. I'm asking you to be honest. With yourself. With us. My voice barely made it out. What do you mean? I mean if you want her. She gestured to Rachel. Then go. Don't hesitate. Don't ask me to approve it. Don't pretend you're doing it for someone else's healing. Just choose. I turned to Rachel. She met my gaze. Her expression wasn't pleading. It was patient. Waiting. I still want this, she said. Not the triangle. Not the chaos. Just you if you want me. I looked back at Emily. And if I choose you? I asked. Emily smiled sadly. Then you're going to have to earn me back. Not because I'm trying to punish you, but because I don't know if I trust you anymore. The truth settled in my chest like stone. You're scared I don't love you the way I used to. No, she said. I'm scared you do, but that it's not enough anymore. Silence followed. Thick. Heavy. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a few days, she said. Give you space. Real space. No distractions. No comfort zones. She picked up a small bag from beside the couch and started for the door. Rachel and I didn't move. Emily paused as she reached for the handle. One of us deserves to be chosen, she said. I just hope you're brave enough to figure out who. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her. Rachel sat down on the edge of the couch. She didn't look at me, just ran her thumb slowly across her knee. She's right. You know, she whispered. You've been stuck in this for weeks. I sat across from her. I didn't want to hurt either of you. You did anyway. I nodded. She finally looked up. Do you want me to stay tonight? It was a simple question. A loaded one. I thought about the way she made coffee with almond milk and vanilla. How she laughed when she forgot lyrics to her favorite songs. How she curled into me that night, fragile but fearless. I thought about the way Emily said my name when she was happy. The way her voice cracked when she fought not to cry. The way she still wore my t-shirts when she cooked dinner barefoot. Rachel stood slowly, waiting for my answer. I don't know, I said. Her face crumpled slightly, not with anger, but with something worse. Resignation. I'm not going to be your maybe either, she said. She kissed my forehead, grabbed her coat, and walked out without another word. And just like that, the house was empty. No Rachel. No Emily. Just the echo of every moment I'd spent avoiding the one question I could no longer run from. Who do you choose when you finally realize you can't have both? I didn't sleep that night. The house was too still, too quiet. It used to be filled with noise, music from the kitchen, laughter echoing down the hall, the soft murmur of late-night conversations shared between three people who thought they were stronger than temptation. Now it was just me. I walked through every room. The couch still held the curve of Rachel's body. The bedroom smelled faintly of Emily's shampoo. The air was saturated with the ghost of something that once felt revolutionary, and now just felt wrecked. I sat at the dining table and stared at my reflection in a half-empty glass of wine. My phone was beside it. Dead. I hadn't charged it. Maybe part of me was hoping the world would stop asking me to be anything at all until I figured out who I really was. Sometime around 4 a.m. I knew. Not with a bolt of clarity. Not a lightning strike. More like a quiet acceptance. Like something I'd always known, but hadn't been brave enough to admit. I took a shower. Got dressed. Drove across town in silence. The city was still half asleep. Delivery trucks rumbling. Sidewalks wet from overnight sprinklers. Streetlights blinking into dawn. I pulled up to an apartment complex with Ivy climbing the brick. I'd only been here once before, when Rachel moved out of her old place. Her light was on. I hesitated at the door. 3 knocks. That's all it took. She opened it slowly, barefoot, wearing an oversized hoodie and no makeup. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes widened, but she didn't look surprised. Hey, I said. She didn't speak. Just stood there, breathing. I made my choice, I said. Her eyes searched mine. You did. I nodded. And it's not easy. It doesn't make what we had less real. But it wasn't right. Rachel's lips parted, but she stopped herself from speaking. I loved you, I said. Still do. But not in the way you deserve. Not in the way you need. She exhaled slowly. You're choosing her. I am. She looked down. Okay. I stepped closer, reaching out. She let me pull her into a hug. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't unfinished. It was goodbye. You were never just a mistake, I whispered. You mattered. So did you. When we pulled apart, she smiled through a tight throat. Go to her, Jake. I will. And then I turned, walked down the stairs, and left her behind. I found Emily at her sister's place, standing in the small backyard, watering a potted fern she'd forgotten to take care of for weeks. Her sister let me in without a word, just a nod. Emily saw me. Put the watering can down. I didn't wait for an invitation. I walked straight to her, pulled her into my arms, and kissed her like I hadn't in months. She didn't resist. When we finally separated, she looked at me with something between suspicion and hope. So, she asked, I chose you. Her throat tightened. But not just because I miss you, I continued. Not because I'm lonely. Not because I don't love her. I chose you because when I imagine my future, who I want beside me when I fail, when I laugh, when I wake up with gray hair and fewer teeth, it was you. She didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and nodded. I don't know if I trust you, she said. You don't have to. Not yet. Just let me earn it. She looked at me, studied me. Then, she opened the door to the house. We took things slowly. We started therapy, talked through every painful inch of it. Some nights we argued. Some nights we cried. Some nights we slept apart, just because it was easier than pretending everything was okay. But we kept showing up. That was the difference. Rachel sent one text a few weeks later. Thank you for being honest. I'm finding peace now. I hope you are too. I didn't reply. Some things are better left as closure. Months passed. We found our rhythm again. Not the same as before, but real, honest, earned. One evening, as we were washing dishes side by side, Emily said, Do you still think about her? I looked at her. Sometimes, I said, but not in the way I used to. Now it just feels like a chapter that had to end so the story could continue. She nodded, wiping her hands. Same. We stood there a moment longer, then kissed without fear for the first time in a long time. Here's what I know now. You can love more than one person at a time. That's real. But you can only choose one to build a life with. Love isn't just chemistry or comfort or attraction. It's commitment. It's showing up. It's walking through the fire and still reaching for the same hand you held before the flames. Rachel was the spark. Emily was the fire. And in the end, I walked through the final door, the one I should have chosen from the beginning. Not because she was perfect, but because she stayed. And because, when I finally stopped running, she was still there, waiting.